Hello, and welcome to this eSchool Media webcast. My name's Andrew Barber, and I'm a senior contributing editor here at eSchool Media, and I'll be acting as the moderator for today's presentation, which is sponsored by SchoolDude. And over the next hour, we're going to look at strategies and best practices for using IT to reduce costs while also increasing efficiency in your school districts and your departments. And equally important, we're going to take a look at how you can capture data to gauge that IT performance and help justify your staffing levels. Now, before I introduce our speakers and we dive into that discussion, let me just take a few moments to highlight a couple of items about the console that we're using today. First, today's event, we will be recording it, and in a couple of days, we'll send out an email to everyone who's on the call today that will contain a link to the presentation. And you'll also be able to download a PDF of the slides from that same email. And second, please ask questions. Don't feel as if you have to wait until the very end of the presentation before you ask a question. At any point during the presentation, if you have a question, just type it into the Q&A panel on your console and hit the submit button. And I hope we'll have about 15 minutes at the end when our speakers can answer your questions. We also have a chat function that can be launched via, if you look down at the bottom of your screen, you can see it. It's a blue group chat icon down at the bottom of your screen. And use chat to have conversations among yourselves about what you're doing in your school districts, or to contact me or the eSchool Media team if you have some technical issues or anything during the course of the presentation. Well, I do have one favor to ask of you, though. Please don't use the chat function to ask our speakers questions. They're just not going to have time during the presentation to monitor the chat. So once again, if you have a question for them, please use the Q&A panel instead. And with that out of the way, let me introduce today's speakers. Sheryl Abshire has been the Chief Technology Officer at Calcasieu Parish School District in Lake Charles, Louisiana, for the past 20 years. And she's also a former professor in the Educational Leadership Department at Lamar University in Texas. She's a perfect person to have in a presentation like this today because over the course of her career, Sheryl's been involved in a host of staff development programs in the U.S. and Great Britain that involves restructuring schools through the infusion of technology and curriculum enhancements. And our second speaker today is Josh Green, who's an applications engineer at SchoolDude. And Josh joined SchoolDude in 2014 working on the company's suite of technology products. And in that role, he conducts product demonstrations for clients, consults with partners, researches product ideas, and also moderates a variety of online webcasts on IT and technology issues. Welcome, Sheryl and Josh. It's a real pleasure to have you here today. Sheryl, why don't you start by sharing something of what you're doing in the Calcasieu Parish schools?
Great. Well, thank you so much, and I'd like to welcome to all of our participants this afternoon. I'm delighted to spend some time this afternoon to talk about, really, as we mentioned in the the opening, new ways to measure and leverage the value of IT. As was mentioned, it's been my pleasure to serve for 20 years as the Chief Technology Officer here in the Calcasieu Parish School District in Southwest Louisiana. Prior to that, I was a school principal, classroom teacher, have taught at the university level, and was a library media specialist. So I feel like I have a real grounded background in using IT for really over 30 years, and the last 20 in a leadership role here in Calcasieu Parish. So to kind of frame the conversation, to show you just this little map of Louisiana, we're right in the bottom southwest corner, almost on the Gulf of Mexico. This time of the year, it's also known as Hurricane Alley. We cover a large geographic area because in Louisiana, all school districts, they're county-wide, or for us, we call them parishes. We have about 34,000 students. We consider that a medium-sized school district, with a little over 60% free and reduced lunch population in the district. As many school districts have over the last several decades, we've had a focus on technology as a strategic way to bring new efficiencies to the school district, but certainly to advance and scaffold learning in new ways so that we're really advancing what we call a quality education with technology, has shifted, as many people have shifted, from no longer really using technology, like teaching people how to use a spreadsheet, how to do email, but more importantly using all of our resources to help teachers understand how to use technology in a 21st century learning environment, and then certainly other people at the department and district level. How do you use a technology to become more effective, to become more efficient, to really do a better job at your job? So if we think about what we've really experienced over the last two decades, it's certainly, we talk about a digital shift. Well, I love the quote from Mark Prensky, who's written a lot about digital immigrants and digital natives, and the fact is that we all know that students have changed radically. Even in the past 5 years, they've changed for various reasons, because of access, because of affordability of devices, because of what's become almost a ubiquitous internet-infused environment, not just in schools, but even out in our communities. And in many ways, we're struggling. We're all focused on how do we shift and transform an educational system to teach students that really our systems initially weren't designed to teach. So I think that's kind of something I'd like to have you kind of prop up in your mind about. We're doing things differently, and what does that really look like in schools? Well, I've built just kind of an interesting profile of what we see as the children that are entering our schools today. For the most part, in just kind of a synopsis format. They were on somebody's phone, they were on a tablet, very early. We're blessed to have a 2-year-old granddaughter, our only granddaughter, and she swipes as well as anybody across an iPad to look at things she wants to. Today's students probably learned to read at an early age. Wanted to play games, World of Warcraft, one of them, or game, on a tablet, or introduce himself or to Paw Patrol, or engage with games, learn to text. Kids today don't make phone calls. My own children are not really millennials, they're 30, 40 years old, but they don't want to talk on the phone. They want to text. Today's student doesn't understand why there's no Wi-Fi in the car. And that kind of makes me laugh when I think about that. Research is anything. No longer do they depend on the teacher in front of the classroom to be the purveyor of all things knowledge. They can research anything. They certainly don't know what a card catalog is. As a former librarian, I had to throw that in there. They created their own blog site. They're blogging, they're Instagramming, they're Snapchatting. They're in a myriad of social media applications communicating. They read news online. They have a homepage that may be CNN or Fox or BBC. And as many young people today, they're not really interested in watching TV. They have different devices they use. They're learning how to do everything they want to do on YouTube. So we are challenged as educators and educational institutions to think very differently about who are we, what do we provide, and how do we do this in a way that engages and challenges them so that they are rich learners, interested learners, and so that at the end of the day when they leave our school system we can say, we have done the very best job we have, and we have prepared them for whatever their path is, immediately into the workforce, into higher education, maybe in a career and technical institute or into a trade. But we've got to think differently, and I think technology is helping us do that. So in my role, certainly as a technology leader in this school district, and, in my role as I network and communicate with my colleagues around the globe about this, one of the things that's abundantly clear to me is that we have a different responsibility. And, this statement here to me is critically important because not only do we have to build this innovative technology infrastructure, we have to support and maintain it, and really for 24/7, 365 access. No longer, do we close our doors at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. Virtually, our doors are open all the time. We have so much digital content online now in this country that our students, whether formally in school or not, or whether it's formally the school year or not, they're still accessing this digital content. And that should be a welcome surprise to us that our digital content is being accessed after hours and when school is not in session. So that's one of the things that's important to me, is that infrastructure supports a new learning landscape in our schools today. So if we think about what does that landscape look like, I kind of laid this out, for you today so that you could see that it's kind of shaped and in a different way than we thought of it previously. We think about learning, instructional support, certainly testing and accountability, which is the watchword for all of us, and school operations. So if we kind of frame that, we think about learning certainly as collaborating online, as I mentioned previously, digital content, textbooks, so much information in the cloud, and that takes a robust, reliable infrastructure. Instructional support, certainly for teachers to be able to have access to data to help to drive smarter decisions, to be able to link to standards, to use different learning and content management systems to make their jobs easier and more efficient, but more importantly, to push forward with that idea of really learning 24/7, 365, to make sure that availability is there in ways that are easily accessible to students and that are easily manageable by our educational staff. Certainly the concept of testing, which has emerged over the past 5 years in ways that, quite frankly, I could not have predicted. But I know in the state of Louisiana and many of your states, all of your testing is done online. That's a real challenge for technology and for infrastructure and for availability of devices and for compliance pieces around what type of client has to be on that desktop, security around testing, and looking at that not only in summative ways, but certainly informative ways that drive instructional change and instructional progress. And again, with that umbrella of this infrastructure and this dependability that we must provide. And then the piece that we all must be concerned about, which is the whole concept of school operations around student information systems, required reporting, availability for parents to be a very large and critical part of learning and digital access, lunchrooms, security, being the phone company, which has changed, heating, cooling, managing all that in ways that really help us reduce cost, and increase efficiencies. And that's what, that's what we're really about. And then, poised with this futuristic view about what next, what do we in the technology world have to prepare for that we don't even know exist yet. So if you think about the role that I play, and I think many of you, in the webinar today play, is this 21st century CIO, Chief Information Officer, Chief Technology Officer, maybe Director of Technology in your district. Sometimes it feels like really we're out there all alone. We're just treading water, the storm's coming, maybe somebody's coming to rescue us, and so we think, is this our life? Is this what we have to do? And so with this myriad of challenges, we certainly all reach out and look for partners that help us do this very, very important, challenging job in a strategic and tactical way. So if you think about that, and that's why I'm so happy to be on this webinar today with SchoolDude and their solutions, is because they have made being efficient, responsible, and reliable users and purveyors of technology into our school systems a much easier thing to do in an economical way, and we're going to hear about that in a few moments. So I'd like to take you beyond this kind of deer in the light, syndrome, this in the ocean alone, and try to move beyond that to think about, collectively, how can we ramp this up? How can we amp up what we're doing to be more effective in light of what's going on in our world today? And if you look at our world today, I wanted you to take a quick look at some data that I pulled together for you from Gardner, which is a premier purveyor of data in the K-12 technology community. And in the purple, these are the top 3 issues that CIOs have identified. And the top issue in purple, 27% of people say budget reductions are hitting us, and staffing and IT funding. Huge concern, the top issue is budget reduction. And I think all of us have experienced this in a way that causes us to think about how do we defend and advance what, quite frankly, is going to take more money year over year because our school districts are more dependent on technology. I think about 20 years ago when email went down or the network went down, I was the only one that was worried about it. Now, within 10 seconds of a blip in any of our systems, our phones are ringing off the hook. And because I've been in the district 43 years and everyone knows me, my phone is ringing off the hook with, Sheryl, what's going on? And so we have to think about that, about how do we make the case, how do we build capacity for funding that we need when we know what's going on in terms of budget challenges for school districts. SchoolDude did a survey, and what came out of that is that school tech leaders, such as myself, said the school board understands technology, but they don't really understand why they need to keep spending more and more money on it. They're not sure how it's linked into our goals. And so that's an important point I would make, that I think all of us have a responsibility to understand, how do we continue to make that case? How do we continue to talk about technology in strategic ways that help decision makers above us understand the importance of technology is a major factor in the total success of a district? So if we think about cost, I thought this was an important piece of data from America's Digital Schools that says tech support has risen, by about 50% in the last 4 years. And that is a tough case to make when you think about it, you can't just put the technology out there and then begin a prayer to hope that it works, because it requires intensive maintenance and support. Because as I like to tell people, you can't give somebody some technology and then take it away. There's no backward walking on a technology project or implementation. Once it's there, it's become a part of the culture. It's been inculcated into teaching and learning, and we must support it and we must maintain it. So how do you show the real value of IT? I'm going to take a few minutes here and go through very quickly. One of the things I'd like to stress is we've got to think about how we speak to people. I know that our jargon is so precious to us, so we've got to ditch it. We've got to communicate what we're doing and our achievements, our importance, and our results, certainly with new projects, so that people understand how important and what the worth of the department is and how it interfaces with every other part of the district. We no longer can be a silo, so we've got to up our communication ante, speak to people in terms that they understand, so they understand what's in it for them, and then ultimately that's going to translate to increased support for IT in a school district. The other thing that I think we need to think about is that we've got to talk about innovation. IT, in my opinion, has been the anchor piece for districts transforming and innovating teaching and learning and other efficiencies that happen in administration. I thought this was an interesting piece of data that in the Harvard Business Report, that we're going to be the most important role in the next 3 years when you talk to digital leaders. And this is across all sectors, not just educational sectors. So that has a big piece for us to ponder about how are we going to prove this real value, because we know that we are the innovation platform, we're the innovation scaffolding that helps learning become new and engaging and helps leaders in our district become more efficient. Because I know this, and we all know this on the webinar, we are not going to find any more time. Time is a finite resource, and so we've got to figure out how can we do more in the same amount of time. And the answer is use technology efficiently. So I've kind of laid out kind of a real quick 7-step program that hopefully will help you think about that. I think one of the first things that's very important is we've got to quit thinking about technology sitting over by itself. We've got to link it in clear and realistic ways to the educational mission of our school districts. That so goes technology, so goes the entire district. I think we have to create and communicate new ways to show value and to anchor it in the work that we do. I think we have to think beyond this department and their budget and this department and that budget. We have to eliminate silos. We reach across every department for funding of technology initiatives. Some people like to say, well, Sheryl just tries to steal our budgets. And I like to say to them, well, no, it's about sharing. That's what we learned in kindergarten. We need to share our budgets because we want to be standardized. We want to be efficient in how we move projects forward. And technology is the undergirding piece to that. So I think you need to look at ways to eliminate silos. Across the entire organization, we need to look for cost savings. Quite frankly, I think technology is one way we can really help people become more effective and efficient by helping them reduce cost, by maybe upfronting some investments, but looking at the return on investment, that ROI, maybe over a 5-year period instead of saying, well, I can't spend all that money this year's budget. Well, you will if you don't have to spend any for the next 4. So think about that ROI over time. Other investments with long-term savings, how you invest early and then you don't invest often. Look at what transformational strategies that you can employ. And I had a meeting with my staff this morning, and one of the things I just spoke about very adamantly is we've got to help other departments think about not this is how we've always done it, so this is how we should keep doing it, because we're very comfortable with that. The comfortable, don't rock the boat mentality is not going to move our districts forward the way that we need to advance them. And so I'm not suggesting we turn over the boat, but I do think sometimes we have to have some waves and shake things up a little bit to really be transformative and help people understand how we can shift and change and do a better job. The other things is we have to engage our community, because if we have to go out for bond issues or levies or any type of funding shift to increase things, our community needs to be engaged. They need to be partners. They need to understand that our schools are changing, their children have changed and are changing. And I have found for the most part, as I've done work around the country, that when you get the community behind you, they want their children to have every benefit. They want their children to have every advancement. And when you can frame things in terms of students and our community's children, it's a success meter that we can't measure, because parents do want the best for their children. So that's my 7-step program that I'd like you to think about. The other thing are these 10 concepts. I'm very fortunate to be on the board of COSN, the Consortium for School Networking, and one of the things we've put forth are these 10 concepts to consider in terms of increasing efficiency, reducing cost, and really improving the whole educational organization. And we have seriously looked at all of these. Our data center is almost totally virtualized. Huge cost savings, huge rise in efficiency. Looking at the deluge of data that's coming in, how do we manage that? Looking at energy consumption, savings, and how we become greener in our IT departments. Look at resource tracking of all the complex resources we now have. Taking a hard look at social software consumerization, what's going on and what's available today. Certainly thinking about a unified communication strategy in the district so that everything is together, your web page, your emergency notification, your app, your learning management system, the phone system, your instant messaging system. That whole communication piece is easy, transparent, and effective for every user up and down, from the student to the employee to the community parent piece of that. Certainly looking at ubiquitous access with mobile and wireless, and how do we manage that, and certainly with the order that came out of the FCC for us being able to have $150 per student to be able to put in Category 2 and wireless infrastructures and access points certainly has made a world of difference. I saw a piece of data yesterday that talked at the huge rise that we've had in our schools today for wireless connectivity. We certainly have to look at density in our systems and what's our coverage and how much can we support. Think about mashups and portals and how are we pushing out this information and making it easy and accessible. And certainly the concept of cloud computing. And I think of this in the framework of how do we recover quickly. Certainly, we're in the middle of hurricane season here. I just did some interviews about disaster recovery, business continuity, and one of the things that I drilled down on is that because so much is in the cloud now, this is an easier conversation than it was 10 years ago about how do we recover from disasters, how do we keep the business of teaching and learning moving and the business of administrating teaching and learning, that when we have things in the cloud, our recovery is much easier. Then an action plan. I want to kind of move quickly to the end of my comments here. Certainly, look at that virtualization, not just for virtualization's sake, but for deduplication, thin provisioning. See about your web software. You know, are you going to be able to transform the way you interact? Look at cloud-based services to take care of what you need to do now. Link your unified communications to everything in an enterprise type of solution so you can move forward and grow. And then something that's hard for all of us to do is to track, look at the weak signals, look at patterns. You know, sometimes we're so busy doing what we do, it's so difficult to step back and analyze and document what we've done and then move back up and repurpose and rethink and improve. It's part of kind of a continuous improvement model. I think that's going to take us where we want to go ultimately. Think about public and private cloud services to really minimize cost and make us much more agile than we are now. Look at resource analytics. I mean, that's how we're going to stop, take a breath, and look at what we're doing, and are we getting the results that we anticipated and we planned for? And again, back to the emerging cloud computing about how do we utilize resources that are available today in the area of cloud computing that really help us with new approaches to everything, not just infrastructure. A lot to think about, a lot to take under consideration, but things that I think that are critical. How do we know if technology is working? I think we get that question all the time. Well, one of the things that we've done is try to push back against the question about, well, prove technology is making a difference in our schools. I think we've moved beyond that. But one of the things we've done is used some strategies and methodologies where we have reached out to all of our employees, to all of our students, and had them work in a survey-type format that's required, and we're able to get scores that help us, and CASE stands for Classroom, Access, Skills, and Environment. So we've been measuring this for 2 years, fall and spring, and we've been able to develop a real snapshot with help from one of our partners about what do our teachers look like in terms of a Calcus U 21st Century teacher? What does it look like, and where are our weak points? Where do we need to push forward towards, and what are the resources we need to meet these goals in new and different ways and effective ways? And so what we've seen in the last 2 years, an area for weakness for us is in digital citizenship skills. So that's something that we've used to drive professional development, that's been used to drive resources into changing that and shifting that. So we're hoping that next spring of 2018, we're going to see these numbers move up because we have data that's driving the professional development, the resource allocations that help us take us towards these areas and what we want to do. So I hope that what you've seen from my very brief remarks are a few high points, a few strategies that may take you from where you are now to where you would like to be and help you reach the goals for optimization of the use of technology in your district. You have my contact information here. I'd be happy to have further conversations with some of you if it suits you. And now I'd like to shift over to one of the stars at SchoolDude. Josh Green is an applications engineer. And Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can enlighten us about some resources and tools that will help us. So Josh, it's yours.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Great presentation. Lots of great information. Hope everyone's taking notes. I know I was. But yeah, we'll go ahead and move into the SchoolDude side of things. For those that are not familiar with us, so I have a quick slide overview of Dude Nation, what we call. So we are the world's largest educational database. We have over 10,000 total clients. 6,000 of those are educational institutions, and 2,100 institutions using our IT solutions. And we serve over 1.5 million professionals and serving 37 million students and growing. And in 2016 alone, we do have a help desk solution, obviously, and we'll get into that in just a brief moment here. But in 2016, we processed over 2.6 million IT incidents, IT tickets in our system. So a lot of data is going through our system, and we're starting to do some really cool, interesting stuff with it. All right. So now, IT department's challenges, I think everyone can agree here. And Cheryl had brought this up earlier, some of these items here. Lack of budget and staff. We talked to a lot of folks here that wear multiple hats. They might be a teacher, but they also might have to be in charge of a portion of IT. So lack of budget, lack of staff, only having so much resources to do so much work. Managing upkeep and replacement of growing number of devices. And as we kind of move into the future, everyone knows we're getting more and more reliant on technology. And the more reliant we are on technology, the more we have to keep track of all of our technology that we have. And so, yeah, just the growing number of devices, and that's not going to slow down. It's gonna hit the speedway soon. Time is going to be a big one. Obviously, time is money. We only have so much time in the day, and we have our personal lives to live. Let's be honest. And then perception gap. This is going to be a big one. There's a perception gap. What you do actually in your job versus what people kind of see that you do. So I think each and every one of us, for the most part, has a perception gap in our jobs. So you got, again, what you do, and then what you actually do, and then what people think you do. So there's that gap there. All right, so we'll cover. I have a slide that covers kind of all of our products, and then we'll dive really quickly into technology essentials, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end here, just a few moments. So just a quick background about our product offerings here. Now, we obviously have technology management solutions. We just rolled out a new help desk. We have an asset management solution, which we'll cover in more detail, as well as an MDM and a single sign-on solution that works with all of our products. But we have more solutions beyond IT, where we have a flagship maintenance management solution called Maintenance Essentials. Helps you keep track of all of your maintenance work orders, your break fix work orders, as well as your preventive maintenance work orders. Got inventory solution, not your technical inventory, but your consumable inventory that you consume on a regular basis. So it can help you keep track of all of your inventory. Facility usage, that kind of gray column there. We have a tool to help you streamline event scheduling to make sure everyone's on the same page for all of your events. Energy management, there's lots of cost-saving potential in energy. You could save anywhere from 3 to 5% just by examining your energy consumption, see if there's any room for improvement for cost savings. Technology management, which we'll cover in just a second here. And then we have a safety management solution called Safety Center. And it allows you to take your paper plans and mobilize them, put them on a device that we pretty much have with us all the time, our smartphone, but it's also available on tablets too. So again, just taking your paper plans and making them available on your smartphone and available offline. All right. So We started our new technology platform. We built it about 2.5 years ago or so. And it started with this tool called Insight. Now, we used to have a tool called ITAM Direct, and this solution has replaced that, again, about 2.5 years ago. It's an agentless discovery tool. So it pulls in your asset inventory just by an agentless network discovery mechanism, which we can always talk more in more detail if you all would like to have a demo with us to discuss the solution and how it can be valuable to you. But again, it's an agentless scanning devices on your network. Helps you optimize hardware and software usage. There's some financial tools built in there, so it helps improve planning and budgeting process with status reporting. So you can really easily see all of your assets from workstations, printers, monitors, non-network connected devices. Really all your assets, all your IT assets, you could track them, where they're at, how much they cost, how much they're due up for replacement, if anything's missing. It's just that one single pane of glass for you to load all of your asset information in. All right. Now we do have a solution for MDM as well. This is going to be for iOS and Android devices, but it's a complete mobile device management solution. And it's for school-owned devices as well as BYOD. So you'll be able to, of course, remotely manage device policies, supervise device usage, control app distribution across the network. So we tie in with the Apple App Store. We tie in with the Google Play Store. And again, it supports BYOD devices and school-owned devices, but it's a full-on management tool. And it works directly with the Insight module. So your mobile devices that are enrolled in our MDM will get pushed over into Insight. And then the next piece here is going to be our help desk. Now we just rolled this out, and we're in the process of rolling it out. We've had a help desk for about 10 years. It went across a couple name changes across its life cycle, but time has come to an end for it. So we've rolled out this new help desk, and it's got a brand new interface, very easy to navigate, very customizable, but it's a complete ticket to close help desk solution. It's got routing rules built in. You can assign tickets to appropriate staff. You could track labor, track purchases. Helps you obviously save minutes per help desk request. We want to help you save time. Time is money. And improve customer satisfaction, reduce ticket submission. We have email to ticket, and we have a knowledge base coming for self troubleshooting. And everything's going to tie together. It all ties, these three modules tie together. So on the help desk, you'll be able to tie the actual asset to the physical ticket. So that could be your servers, that could be your workstations, that could be printers, monitors, other non-network devices like peripherals, whatever the case might be, you'll be able to track the asset to the number of tickets that are associated with it. And then you'll be able to see your total cost of ownership for all of your assets. So that was a quick rundown of SchoolDude with a focus on our technology solutions. So we'll move right on over into a Q&A next.
All right. Well, thank you, Josh, and thank you, Sheryl, for a really great discussion about what you're doing at Calcasieu Parish. We still have about a little over 15 minutes left, so we have a lot of questions to get through. So let's go directly into those. Sheryl, I'm going to come back to you first, and there's a question from Stephanie in the audience who's talking about something which I think everyone is familiar with, whether it's K-12 education or higher education, this idea of silos and breaking them down. Do you, when you know, everyone likes the idea of breaking down silos. It's not always as easy as we would like to think. What has been your experience with successful strategies for, breaking that silo down? How have you done it in your districts?
Thank you. This silo conversation is a real nuanced one. I think I'd like to take it back to the concept of a lot of the work that we do in school districts is about relationships. It's about relationship building. And I think that when we take it from that angle and we build and continue to build on relationships with other departments, with school principals, with our budget director or your CFO and the superintendent, where you begin to demonstrate and help people understand the value that IT brings to their department. Let me give you an example. We work very closely with our federal programs director, and he was a former school principal when I was a principal. We had a relationship. I've continued to advance and nourish that relationship to help him understand that in terms of federal programs and the very large budgets that they have, that we need to work collaboratively as he decides on funding different pieces of technology, whether it's hardware or software, that we have an approval process that we go through, that what he's approving being bought is something that will function on our network, something that is an enterprise-type application, that is not going to require us to have another staff person hired to manage it, because the users have to be individually, put in rather than pulled seamlessly from our student information system. So that's just one example, this relationship with the federal programs director. So quite frankly, he's not approving the buying of hardware that is not our system standard, that we can't support and repair, and don't have a relationship with the vendor about an extended warranty that comes preloaded with our image, which saves time, not only for us at the technology department level, but at the school level, so that the functionality is easy, teachers know how to use it, and the downtime is negligible. So that's one example. Is it's about relationship building. It's about continuing to maintain relations and to help these siloed departments understand how technology is supporting them, and why when we work together, we all get a better return on the investment. We are more efficient. We can help save you money, but more importantly, as Josh mentioned, we can help save time, and time's at a premium today.
Okay. Oh, terrific. Well, thank you. And I just want to follow up with the second half of Stephanie's question, which is referring back to what you were saying about get rid of the jargon. And I think everyone in IT has probably had some moment where they're talking to an administrator or a teacher and had just received a blank stare in response to something they're saying. Can you give an example of, as technology becomes more and more complex and IT has to have more and more things going on, it's very easy to get sucked into the minutia of it all. Can you give an example of how you've taken something that is technologically very difficult to understand and and made it understandable to the layperson? Is there an example that you can pull up that you could maybe share with the audience?
Mm-hmm. I have a couple of quick ones. One is in terms of helping. There's a big conversation going on about all of the wireless that we have in our districts. So many people have gotten laptops, and they expect that when you're operating wirelessly, you get the exact same results as if you're plugged into a wall and you have what's called a hardwired connection. We've done considerable work to help people understand about the concept of wireless and wired, and this concept of latency, and we just had to change that conversation instead of using technical terms and say to people, well, it's very different. When your computer is plugged in and hardwired to the wall, you're getting a very quick, fast connection right through our network out to the internet. However, when you're wireless, There may be a problem with latency. And what does that mean? You know how sometimes you click on something and there's a little spinning dial in the middle of your screen? Well, it's taking time to go from your laptop to the access point in the ceiling or on the wall and then being connected out. And there's a lot of factors, such as if somebody's using a microwave around you, if there's something going on outside, if you don't have an access point in your room, if it's outside and the materials of your wall are having a hard time letting that signal get through. So instead of saying latency and throughput and all this, we talk in terms that help them understand how the technology is functioning in ways that make sense to what they're trying to do. That's one way to me that's been critical in helping people understand, well, that's a terrible network. I just, on my laptop, and I just can't get to what I want, and da-da-da, and everything doesn't work. Well, maybe you're trying to do something that's pretty high-powered, and you should be using a wired connection. So that's just a quick little example. But again, this jargon thing is, I just think we have to simplify things in terms of how people work and make it make sense to them that way. And then they understand it. They're like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. Not use our terminology, use their terminology in their productivity terms.
Sure. Okay, all right. Well, that's very helpful. And I'm going to switch over now to and address the questions over to Josh. Josh, when you were doing that quick walkthrough of the SchoolDude offerings at the end, it seems like an extremely robust and powerful system. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of size schools and districts that you typically work with? Do you run the gamut from very small to large? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. We do run the gamut from small to large. We always say that no district is too small. A lot of times we get on calls and they say, oh, we're too small for this help desk, or we're too small, we don't have enough technology to really work for the insight solution. So just to answer your question, we work with small, very, very small and very, very large size clients, and that's public K-12. We work with private institutions as well as higher education. So yeah, the whole gamut.
Okay, and I'll just follow up with another question that's coming is how many licensed users do your products allow?
It's unlimited. That's a really good question. So the way we price things out is fairly unique, and we very much have pricing that makes sense for education. Being a company that works specifically with education, we don't cap you on the number of users. We don't cap you on the number of devices. We base all of our pricing on full-time enrollment.
Okay. All right. Terrific. And now let me come back, Sheryl, and talk about IT. Sheryl, how do you track the growth in IT? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I'd be happy to. Again, it's a delicate question. I can't answer it perfectly, but one of the ways that we do this is with system tools. Certainly one way to start is to look at devices on the network. We have several tools that we use to manage that. We look at how many devices do we have on the network every month? What does that growth look like? We're tracking what does internet use look like. As IT directors, we have to provide and assume that we know the right amount of bandwidth for the solutions that not only administratively but instructionally are being used, and try to calculate and measure that. And most of it's on past practice and some crystal balling that we do to look at what we think is going to happen in terms of growth. So we try to measure that in very strategic ways. Another thing that we measure is, I think Josh talked about this in terms of help desk tickets, to look at longevity of systems, to look at what are problems or concerns that come up, and we track them to look at where are there either gaps in knowledge that we need to focus on helping our users understand something better because we're getting more questions about this, more concerns. That is something I think that's very important to all of us, is to be able to build FAQs around what are these issues and questions, but you have to be tracking what are the questions, what are the issues, so that you can build solutions that you're not having to answer or talk on the phone to people about all day long. The other thing is in terms of hardware, looking at what do those replacement cycles look like, tracking that and building budgets that help us understand what are those needs going to look like next year, the year after that, the year after that. Because in IT, you can't assume that the money's going to be there every single year. You've got to make that case. And so having that data and analytical processes in place that help decision makers, superintendents, CFOs, boards, understand where you're going and what is the path to get there, I think is critically important. So it's that data collection, it's that analysis of data that you're collecting, and again, presenting it at the right time to the right people so they can see where you're going. I know that my superintendent, my CFO don't want to be surprised. They don't want me coming to them in November and telling them, you know what, we're in a bind. I've got to spend $100,000 more or $200,000 more because of this, because they're looking at me, well, why didn't you think about that in March of last year when we were building the budgets? Well, I didn't have that data. I didn't look at that data. That doesn't work anymore in school districts. Yeah. They're counting on us to analyze data correctly and use it to predict what's going to happen over the next calendar or, fiscal year in our districts. And I don't think we can do that adequately unless we are collecting data and analyzing it and then being able to present it in such a way that it's easily understandable to decision makers.
Okay. Okay. All right. Terrific. Well, there's sort of tangentially related here. We have a question from Mandy in the audience. And it'd be interesting to see if data can play a role here. The question is, how do you get an overview of the technology skills that your teachers are lacking or need work on? I mean, how do you gather, you talked about infrastructure and monitoring every aspect of your IT infrastructure and performance. Teachers are in the forefront, and it's been a big issue with professional development. Can you talk a little bit about the faculty side of this and trying to get a sense of where the faculty on this whole process?
Sure. One of the things that we have done, because we are not, while we're a technology-rich district, we're not a rich district. And so one of the things we've done with our technology facilitators, that we have a small number for the large number of schools and students we have, but they are assigned groups of schools, and they work in those schools several days a week. They spread it out over time and develop relationships with those teachers. And so what we've done is used another partner that I showed you the case scores from that partner that we're using to survey and analyze what do our teachers know and what are they able to do with technology. And then those facilitators that are at our schools work with the principal, curriculum coordinators, assistant principals to build customized professional development that we build ourselves and that they use in the school to help the teachers in that building either in small groups or large groups or in what we call PLCs, professional learning communities, during the day to help them build the skills based on their need set that we've identified by the case score for the teachers in that building. So I hope that helps her, because we're able to use, like I said, another tool and then use staff, I think, in a pretty creative way, because we can't afford to have a technology facilitator in every school. I just don't have the staffing allocation to do that, but we spread them out, and we've gotten pretty good results with that, and helping build capacity within the school with other tech leaders in the school to provide support and kind of help them grow their own.
Okay. All right. Well, I wish we had some more time because we have a lot more questions to get through, but unfortunately that is all the time that we have left today. But if any of you did ask a question that we were unable to get to today, someone from the SchoolDude team will follow up to get you some answers. So as we wrap up, I really want to thank Sheryl Abshire and Josh Green again for really excellent presentations and a very good discussion. And I'd also like to thank SchoolDude for its support. But one final reminder before we sign off, we will be sending out an email to everyone who was in the presentation today when the recording of the webinar is ready, which will probably be in a day or so. So thank you again for joining us, and this concludes today's webcast. Goodbye.